Namaste, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to part 2 of what we're calling key aspects of clinical trial design for medical devices. I'm going to pick up right away from where we left off in the previous video, and this question this time is addressed to Cari. Now, Cari, I'm aware of our best practices and ability and ongoing efforts directed at delivering the highest efficiency and effectiveness of clinical trials at 𝗪𝗀𝗻+. So, for the audience, how does a CRO like 𝗪𝗀𝗻+ help with barriers such as those related with handling ethics and regulatory systems, effective and efficient patient recruitment, and skilled staff and robust infrastructure, all important pillars of the conduct and design of a trial?
Great. Thanks, Jay. The one-word answer to that is experience, but experience in what? So, on the last session, we talked about all of the things you need to keep in mind when you're designing your trial, whether it's whether you have your reimbursement set, whether your regulatory strategies are set, whether your design matches real life situations. And 𝗪𝗀𝗻+ has all of those people here. So we can, as you're designing your trial, we can work with you on reimbursement and not just look at your product, but the landscape surrounding your product. What does that reimbursement look like? Are your expectations realistic? We can help that piece of it. We can help with the regulatory aspect from a global perspective. We have experts across the world that we can help make sure that the trial you're designing, the data you're collecting, is going to be harmonized across all of those countries, so you know that you can use this for your multiple submissions. And like Guido talks about last time from a clinical aspect, and really, he gave a great example of us seeing a protocol, seeing a study and saying, this is really probably not going to work this way, and working with the sponsor to go back and make it something that would actually work. And so you have that clinical experience in a team of people who have been doing trials, specifically medical device trials, for a very long time. So we can take all of that experience, and whether you've designed it or not already, we can look at it and say, we have concerns about X, Y, and Z. Let's sit down and talk about it and see if we can come up with a way that maybe would be better. Really, being able to have all of this together and guide the sponsor's study, the sponsor's product to meet their end goal is really a great defining factor of 𝗪𝗀𝗻+.
Guido, any thoughts to add?
You said it very well already, but I would say the advantage specifically of 𝗪𝗀𝗻 is we have physicians in-house. So I myself am a physician and experienced project and study manager, and we have other experienced subject matter experts in-house. So we are able to review study protocols. We are able to ask the sponsor the right questions, as Cari already said, and as we discussed last time. So, for example, regarding the patient population indications, and we have regulatory experts in-house, so and reimbursement experts, so we can, discuss the strength of evidence required, because, one thing is to say, well, ideally we would like this, and this, but then you might get a very large study and it will be very expensive and it will take a very long time. So it is always a balance between, what is essential and what is, really nice to have, but not essential, and maybe you are not able to afford it for whatever reason, either time or money. So this is a process, and we are sure we can help the manufacturer, the sponsor of the study, with getting the most out of his investment by de-risking, the study design, by de-risking the whole project, basically.
Okay, well, I want to get into one of my more favorite parts, which is the statistical weeds. Now, that said, it's widely recognized that increasing the speed of enrollment leads to faster completion. It's logical, makes sense, right? And it also may be associated with fewer dropouts, better statistical power, and increased confidence in results. Now, there's also an aspect of loss to follow-up, or LTF, to contend with at the later stages of a study. Now, Rolf, given your extensive experience with study design, from a biostatistics perspective, how best do we avoid situations associated with poor recruitment, dropouts, missing data, and underpowered trials? I'm trying to get to aspects of statistics that may cause studies to fail. Hence the question.
Yes, Jay. Yeah, in my experience, a clinical trial shouldn't be too complex. I have seen a lot of studies in the past which were definitely too complex. If the participation in the study is very time consuming for the patients, there is a high risk, of course, that the patient will either not participate at all at the study or that they will drop out early, so that we have a lot of terminations, premature termination patients, and a lot of missing data in the study database. So another important point from my point of view is the feasibility which is carried out before the study starts. In most cases, the possible patient numbers achieved here are too optimistic. And therefore, I would suggest to recruit more centers than necessary, depending on the feasibility, to increase the recruitment speed, because I think recruitment speed is one of the most important things here in this area.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, moving on from statistics, and team, any instances with defining what observations would constitute a clinically meaningful result rather than merely a statistically significant results that you're willing to discuss? I'm sure you've come across these examples, but anything that you're willing to discuss?
Well, if I may start, I have a very good example, or, well, it's not one example. I've been working in the field of AF detection with implantable devices for many years. So this is a prime topic or a prime indication where you can achieve many statistical results, and still the question is what is clinically relevant? What is
still have 50% of the patients come back for a reintervention very soon.
That's also true. Absolutely. So, I mean, first of all, you can say this is ideal. You can, with very few patients, probably show that you have a certain reduction or a certain detection threshold in AF. But then the right question to ask is not, okay, yeah, you can say, great, we've done some therapy and we've received a significant, 80% reduction or 50% reduction with a highly significant, statistics behind it. And then you of course, you will go, let's say, out into a physician and say, well, we've seen a reduction from 2 hours of AF to 1 hour AF. And then we'll say, yeah, so what? This is the prime example of, okay, you have to really ask the question, what is clinically significant and compared to statistically significant. And we have the company I've worked for is a very large company, very well known, and there's a lot of resources and internal and external subject matter experts. But nevertheless, they have struggled for quite a while with this. And so, this is the worst case probably example, but it still applies to any trial design you can think of. The same with pharma. Very, very often you can get into the discussion, what is a relative reduction, relative risk reduction, or relative improvement versus the absolute benefit in terms of, patients improving. So a number needed to treat versus number, benefit, and also sometimes number needed to harm versus number needed to treat. So, this is where you have to look. Again, it's quite a lot of statistics involved, but you have to look into that, see the relation is appropriate to be able to, get this therapy into the field. From pharma, this is very clear that this has been used way back. Device manufacturers were a bit less used to this kind of analysis, but nevertheless, it needs to be done, because otherwise you cannot show that your therapy or device will benefit the patient, which is ultimately what is required.
Right. You know, what I'm hearing as you talk through these examples is to have a real firm understanding of what that benefit risk story is going to look like from a patient perspective as well as from a user perspective up front, right?
Yes.
Know what clinical outcomes lend to it and what corresponding measures need to be made as part of your endpoints to be able to justify that eventual benefit risk story, because it helps you as a manufacturer to, maybe support some of the claims that you want to make eventually, and it also helps that benefit risk story when it's the 11th hour in terms of regulatory submission. There is
Absolutely.
increased focus on all these items, both in the US as well as the EU, and I'm sure other geographies are following suit real quick on this benefit risk story. It's really important. We've seen that when it comes to real innovation. In that case, I would like to say lack thereof. But another device type that prominently comes to my mind is embolic protection devices. There are some devices that have failed their primary endpoints. And sometimes when you go and scrutinize the trial design, manufacturers had powered the study only on major disabling stroke, right? Sometimes the stroke was not always neurologist adjudicated. It was only cardiologist adjudicated. And we all know cardiologist adjudicated stroke versus neurologist adjudicated stroke, the rates can be very different. And that has a significant impact on the outcome of your trial. So careful thought in terms of what your eventual benefit risk story needs to be and some of the outcomes that you need to be measuring to try and help you justify that story, both from a patient perspective as well as a user perspective. And in case of this embolic protection device, there is a cost associated with using it. So the whole healthcare system needs to weigh in as well as far as considerations for benefit risk is concerned. The point that we're trying to make, folks, is that it's multifactorial when it comes to even small aspects such as the endpoints that you choose to go after. Now, zoom out and think about how multifactorial the entire clinical study process could be. So whether you're choosing to go it alone or you're choosing to partner with a CRO, be very careful and try to recruit in as much experience and cross-functional expertise there is available to help you succeed to this end. With that, thank you very much. And please join us on the next edition of Talks Around Clinical Trials. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay.